Hello and welcome to Entirely English. In our last session, we looked at the brutal, pretty chaotic 1,000-year war that took place as our country tried to sort out Sunday trading, which eventually resulted in the Act of 1994, restricting supermarkets to just 6 hours of trading on a Sunday. Do go back and check that video out if you've missed it. Now, if you walk down a British high street on some Mondays, you might notice something strange. As you look around, you'll see the offices are completely empty. Shops are closed. There's very little traffic. The factories are silent. But some of the supermarkets may well be open. This could happen if the Monday you're in that town is a bank holiday Monday. What is that? Why are supermarkets opening at Sunday hours on a Monday? Why is Monday behaving like a Sunday? To understand that, we need to look at a brilliant Victorian banker who loved cricket, hated how hard his staff worked, and used a genius legal loophole to create our modern 3-day weekend, the bank holiday weekend. So let's have a look at this almost secret history of why Britain grinds to a standstill pretty much on these particular Mondays. Now, to understand how radical the invention of the 3-day weekend was, we need to understand how chaotic the British calendar used to be. And before the mid-19th century, there was no such thing as standardized national holidays. Instead, the Bank of England and government offices closed their door for a staggering 40 different days through the year. Now, these weren't weekend breaks. They were a massive tapestry of religious holidays, saints' days, royal anniversaries. For example, if it was the anniversary of the king's coronation, everything shut down. Some particular saint's day, everything shut down. Some particular festival, bang, and the banks closed their doors. And the elite and the wealthy took a day off. 40 of them throughout the year. Now, with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, and Britain becoming this industrial superpower, factory owners, retailers, the government realized 40 days of holiday was way too much. It was terrible for the productivity of the country. Capitalism wanted non-stop trade, which meant non-stop labor. And so the government began aggressively stripping the calendar bare. By 1934, the Bank of England had drastically stripped those 40 days down to just 4. Good Friday, May Day, All Saints' Day, Christmas Day. That was it. So for the average Victorian factory worker or corporate clerk, this was an absolute disaster. They were forced to work, as you remember from the previous video, a grueling 12 to 14 hours per day, 6 days a week. The only day off they had was Sunday, which was a mandatory religious lockdown. So 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Only the Sunday's free. And because of the ruling, they couldn't do anything fun on the Sunday. Not as in the Puritans, just because everything was closed. So those workers had almost zero time to rest, zero time to see their family, zero time to recover. The British working class was burning out. Enter the hero of our story, Sir John Lubbock. Lubbock was a fascinating man. He was a wealthy aristocrat, a high-flying commercial banker, a prominent scientist who studied ants, and the captain of his local cricket team. In 1870, Lubbock was elected as a member of Parliament, but unlike many of his wealthy peers, Lubbock had deep emotional empathy for the people working under him. He noticed his bank clerks were pale, chronically exhausted, and had no time to play sport and enjoy the English countryside. Lubbock decided he wanted to pass a law giving the entire country a break. But he faced a massive political hurdle. The Victorian Parliament was packed with ruthless factory barons and business owners. If he proposed a bill called the National Workers' Day Off Act, the factory owners would have killed it instantly, arguing it would destroy the British economy. So Lubbock thought about it, and he decided to use a stroke of legal genius. He didn't write a law for the workers. He wrote a law for the banks. In 1871, Lubbock introduced the Bank Holidays Act. The wording of the bill was incredibly specific and focused entirely on financial administration. Lubbock knew that the entire British Empire ran on a system of paper money, checks, and promissory notes, which were legal contracts promising payment on a particular date. If a business failed to pay the promissory note on that particular date, they went bankrupt, and the owners could be thrown in debtor's prison. Lubbock's Act simply stated the banks were legally permitted to close on 4 specific days a year. But here was the masterstroke loophole. The law declared that no person could be compelled to make a financial payment or transact any business on those specific days. So crucially, any bill or debt that was due on that date, one of these 4 days, these bank holidays, was deferred to the next day, completely free of any penalty, any interest, any legal punishment. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth did he pass such a bill? How did it get through a Victorian Parliament that was mostly filled with greedy factory barons and ruthless industrialists? The answer is Lubbock pulled off a masterclass in political deception. He knew that if he argued for the happiness and health of the working class, the fat cats would panic and kill the bill immediately. So he buried his true intention under an avalanche of boring financial jargon. He titled it Bank Holidays Bill, making it sound like a dry, technical piece of administrative housekeeping that only affected bankers. So the factory barons in Parliament looked at it, deemed it beneath their interest, completely irrelevant to their manufacturing industries, and essentially ignored it. It passed with virtually no opposition. The banks did push back slightly, forcing Lubbock to remove Christmas Day and Good Friday from the bill because they were already common law holidays. But Lubbock didn't mind. It's suspected he put them in there just to give the banks something to argue against and to compromise on. He kept his head down, and by the time the business owners realized that turning off the banks would force their own factories to grind to a halt, the bill had already received royal assent. See, this changed everything. By freezing the financial system, Lubbock triggered a massive, unstoppable ripple effect through the British economy. Think about it. If the banks are closed, the shopkeepers can't deposit their cash, they can't clear checks. A factory owner can't clear funds or pay their suppliers. A dock worker couldn't clear shipping manifests, and so on and so on. Because the financial engine of the country completely ground to a halt for those 24 hours, all other businesses across the country were forced to close as well. It was utterly pointless for a factory, a dock, or corporate office to stay open when they legally could not move any money. Lubbock had successfully tricked the capitalist system. He gave the entire working class a day off by simply turning off the financial grid. The public was so grateful to him that for decades these new long weekends were affectionately known as St. Lubbock's Days by the British public. The original 1871 Act granted 4 official statutory bank holidays to England, Wales, and Ireland. Easter Monday, Whit Monday, the first Monday of August, and Boxing Day. So as we said, Christmas Day and Good Friday weren't included in the bill because they were already common law holidays. Now, you might be wondering why not Scotland. We'll come to that in a moment. Now, while the law successfully closed down offices, a bitter class divide quickly opened up. Because the Act technically only regulated banks, it didn't legally force these factory bosses to pay their workers for the day off. Wealthy bank clerks, salaried corporate workers enjoyed paid days off. But for millions of working class laborers paid by the hour, a bank holiday was a double-edged sword. They got a day of rest. Great. But they lost a full day of pay. Bad. It took decades of trade union fighting and contract updates before bank holidays became paid time off for everybody. So let's go back to, we had England, Ireland, and Wales had this law. What happened with Scotland? Those three countries embraced Lubbock's law, those 4 special days through the year. Not so much Scotland. Scotland looked at the law and completely rebelled. They've always kept their own distinct legal and cultural identity, and they refused to align with London. So, for example, the English love Boxing Day, December 26th, the day after Christmas Day. But historically, the Scots didn't care about Christmas celebrations because of their strict Presbyterian history. Instead, the biggest celebration in the Scottish calendar was Hogmanay, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So when the Act passed, Scotland insisted on its own selection of 5 days. They chose New Year's Day, Good Friday, first Monday of May, first Monday of August, and Christmas Day. Go figure. So then, exactly 100 years after Sir John Lubbock's breakthrough, Parliament realised that the Victorian system needed an upgrade, to fit in with the modern world. So they passed the Banking and Financial Dealings Act of 1971. And this is the exact legislation that created the modern layout we have today. Before 1971, holidays like Whit Monday, they moved around the calendar, and they're based on religious timings, a bit like we have Easter still. And all of that makes it difficult for businesses, factories, shipments, all that sort of thing, to plan ahead when everything keeps shifting around. So the 1971 Act officially scrapped Whit Monday and instead created a fixed special day called Spring Bank Holiday. And that's on the last Monday of May. It also shifted the August Bank Holiday from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, maximizing the chance for a warm 3-day weekend for families who wanted to go on holiday. But the 1970s didn't just move the holidays. This was the decade that changed our bank holidays, our 4 days through the year for England and Wales, to 8 days. So up until this point, the 1970s, the country had had 6 official days off. Lubbock's 4 bank holidays and Christmas Day and Good Friday. If you believe it, in England, Wales, Ireland, New Year's Day wasn't an official holiday, not a bank holiday at all. In fact, I remember as a child, all of the shops would open on New Year's Day and start what we call the January sales. People would go back to work on January the 1st after the celebrations of New Year's Eve with a hangover and try to struggle through the day. So Parliament finally fixed that in the 1971 Act, officially adding New Year's Day to the list of bank holidays. Just 4 years later, in 1978, the government added another day, the early May bank holiday, or May Day, ostensibly to celebrate international workers. But if you go back and watch my video about May Day, you'll see it has pagan roots, which I'll get into that right now. By combining the 2 ancient common law holidays, Lubbock's 4 Victorian bank holidays, and these 2 1970s modern additions, the standard British calendar of 8 official bank holidays was finally complete. Which brings us right back to that modern anomaly we discussed at the beginning. Why do British supermarkets operate Sunday trading hours on Bank Holiday Mondays? And legally, Bank Holiday Monday is not a Sunday. Under the law, a massive Tesco's, Asda, Aldi, they could operate on a bank holiday Monday regular hours. And they could open 24 hours if they're one of those stores. There's nothing legally to stop them. But they chose not to open those long hours for two major reasons, linking back to our old friend Sir John Lubbock. And the first one is public transport. Because banks and offices close, buses and trains work on a much reduced schedule. Buses and trains run the Sunday timetable on bank holiday Mondays, which is greatly reduced. This means it's more difficult for shoppers to get into their towns, to get to the supermarkets, to do their shopping. And even so, footfall in the town centres drops dramatically in the afternoon. These are bank holidays. People have things to do. So the shops have a greatly reduced customer base. And the second is staffing costs. Because a bank holiday is still culturally viewed as a sacred day of rest, retail workers fought for decades to ensure that anyone that works on a bank holiday is paid time and a half. That means they get 50% more hourly wage. So if they were paid £20 an hour on a bank holiday, they'd have to be paid 30. So either they're paid at least time and a half, or they get a day off in lieu. Now, keeping some huge supermarket open for 12 or 24 hours, paying your staff time and a half, and reduced customers, it's a financial nightmare. So the retail bosses simply chose to copy and paste the Sunday timetable onto the bank holiday Monday and have done with it. And everybody accepts that. Back in the 1970s, when this law was introduced, not so many people had cars. We relied on the public transport system. Cars were a very expensive luxury for many. Nowadays, many more people have cars. It's much easier for most people to get around, but it's become like a tradition. So the next time you feel frustrated because you can't do your shopping in the big supermarket after 4 p.m. on a bank holiday Monday, don't blame modern corporate greed. Blame, or rather praise, a brilliant Victorian banker who just wanted his staff to have enough time to play cricket on a beautiful sunny afternoon. Okay, if you like this, if it was interesting, enjoyable for you, then please hit the like and subscribe button. Do leave a comment below. If you are a new resident in our country, do you find it frustrating, annoying, that you can't get your milk or your beer on a bank holiday Monday evening? Did this completely baffle you? Whatever the case is, I think we should all give thanks to Sir John Lubbock, the architect of our modern bank holidays, a man who cared for the people and did something remarkable. Okay? So hope to see you again soon. We've got a rather interesting video, I think, coming up next, which, well, wait and see. Have a great week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye now.